everybody. I've been absent again. I apologize. This always zooms in when I push record. Real quick, I reached 50 subscribers. That's a good thing. Makes me happy. I know I did a video a million years ago saying that I would do a STEM toy giveaway at 50 subscribers, but I failed to consider my potential financial situation when that milestone is reached, which is not. It's just not. I don't have a financial situation. So I've been wanting to do this video for a long time, and there is some awesome headway in that area, so I'm just super passionate about it. So I'm about to start my fundraising process for my service dog, and I think I'm gonna get a puppy and have a trainer instead of getting from an organization. Because I have a very specific need. I need a dog that's big and strong enough to do mobility assistance and deep pressure therapy for like an adult and not a child. And I also need one whose fur is sensory friendly, so I don't like short-haired dogs. My parents have a golden, and he is just the sweetest, most majestic dog on the planet. So I just have a very specific breed, and I'm gonna have a trainer. There's a company where I live. So one of the things you'd want to do if you want to get an autism service dog, or any kind of service dog really, especially like psychiatric service dogs, things whose tasks won't be clearly defined, like a seizure alert dog or a seeing eye dog. What you want to do, regardless if you're going the route of getting one straight out or training him yourself or whatever, or if you're doing like I am, getting a dog and then having a trainer help you, what you need to do before you get to that training point of starting to train, the service aspect, is to take notice and keep track of your cues, of the behaviors that you want the dog to notice, and then what task he needs to learn for that cue. So the behaviors, like anxiety behaviors, whatever, those are cues that you exhibit that the dog is going to recognize, and the task is what he performs in response to that cue. So I have done that, and it is dauntingly long. I knew I needed a service dog before, but now looking at this list, it's confirmed. So I, like I say in my other videos, like really the only expertise I can offer is my own experience. So what I'm going to do for you guys is just share my cues and tasks that I will be training my service dog for, and I'm sure a lot of these are across the board and helpful for you. If you recognize that you do some of these same behaviors, feel free to take note of, those kind of things, just to help you if you're starting that process. It is hard. I mean, it really is, to have that self-awareness. A good thing you should do is have a loved one, or someone you're living with who knows you well, to help observe, because a lot of your behaviors, if it's for psychiatric, PTSD, or even autism, so much stuff is involuntary, and it's hard to pay attention to. Because I have alexithymia, and I can't tell what I'm feeling, I always have to listen and pay attention to my body anyway to take care of myself. So it was a little bit less difficult for me to recognize my things, but I did also have a friend who kind of watched for me and, will tell me every once in a while, hey, this thing bothered you, and I was like, really? Wow, that's cool. Very valuable thing to have. So I'm just going to try to go through this as fast as I can, but I think it'll be good information, so you guys won't mind it being long. So first thing is to explain why I need a service dog, or what he will be for. I am autistic, and severe auditory processing disorder. My nervous system is a train wreck 24/7. It takes a lot to stay regulated. And I have self-injurious meltdowns, so I'll hit my head, I bang my head, I bite my fingers. My meltdowns are kind of violent. I have autistic catatonia, which when I get excessively overwhelmed, it's my freeze response in the face of like overwhelming stimuli or anxiety or panic, and I lose the ability to speak and to initiate movement. So having a service dog with a hands-free like tether to assist in leading me and helping initiate movement if I do have that freeze response, I do have a catatonic episode in public. Kind of just a crash course, and I will explain more specifically these kinds of things. So I'm just going to kind of go down my list. It isn't really organized, and I apologize for that. So I'll just try to do my best to stay clear, keep things clear. So I'm going to share with you my cues and then share the task that I would want Service Puppo to initiate. So my biggest identifier, one of the biggest, is that my hands start shaking. My hands and my body start shaking when I'm reaching sensory overload, when I start to have a panic attack. It's a very vivid response. So that's one. I also have a stutter. I know you've noticed in my videos. That is something that, you know, gets worse or better depending on how tired I am, but it's also very much an overload anxiety response, because I explained with my catatonia, one of the first thing I lose is ability to speak. So the stutter, like, I don't have a speech impediment. I haven't always had issues. It's sort of that tipping point of like I'm starting to reach my freeze response, my catatonia, where I'm losing the ability to translate my thoughts into words, and so on the way to that loss of skill, I start to stutter. I start to really struggle to get words out, and that's something I've noticed too. If you watch many videos of service dogs in action, there's this one that I really like of a war veteran explaining the day he got his PTSD diagnosis, and he's got a service dog there, and it's really cool to see the dog notice the cue and help him. And I mean, because I am so versed in paying attention to like my body language, and I mean even growing up learning to read other bodies' language, like I picked up on the cue just as the dog did too. And what it was is he was explaining this really stressful event, and oh my gosh, this is ironic, he started stuttering and the dog responded to that cue. So stuttering is something that can be, if it's not a normal speech impediment, is signifying, for me at least, I'm on my way to a bad place. And so for these mild, like shaking, stuttering, kind of these mild identifiers of me getting more overloaded and anxious, what I need for that is there's not necessarily a task to mitigate those things, but really what it is because I can't be paying attention to my body and catch these things 24/7. If I'm tired, if I'm distracted, I won't always catch it. So that I need the alert for the dog to notice my shaking or my stuttering, to alert me to the fact that I am starting to get overwhelmed, and so that I can take the necessary steps to take care of myself. Because one of the most stressful things in my life is I'm not on medication. I don't have a margin. If I miss my cues, next thing I know, I'm having a problem and I can't stop it. So it's just extremely tiring to have to constantly make sure I'm recognizing those things. So huge thing that he's going to mitigate for me is helping take some of that responsibility of paying attention to my cues so that I can live my life. Let's see. There was a video of a service dog helping an autistic adult stop hitting. They were hitting themselves. They were having an injurious meltdown, and it went viral, I think, at one point. I don't know how many have seen that. And for the life of me, I promise with all my heart, I'll try to be better at linking stuff in my description. But usually by the time of ending a video, I have no spoons left, and it just doesn't happen. But really, one of the biggest and most commonly known about by the society and media is the value of service dogs for people with autism who do have those self-injurious behaviors, where the dog can interrupt and help redirect. Because the thing about a meltdown, a thing about injurious behaviors and that loss of control, is it is you sort of lose that ability to interrupt yourself. It's like frenzied, and literally like just having that interruption, having a dog to say, hey, like interrupt my hands just a little bit, so I have that split second of awareness of what's going on to maybe try to redirect. That's a technique they use a lot for, you know, children and adults, people with autism who have those. You know, you're not supposed to stop the behaviors even if they're hurting themselves, because it is serving a purpose. But you try to redirect to something that's safer. Like for me, I'm trying to implement in myself, my redirection is if, like, because I hit my head, I try to redirect, you know, to my chest or to my legs. It's still hitting myself, but I'm not gonna like give myself a concussion. But again, depending on just how overwhelmed I am, that might not even be possible for me to consciously think that. So that's a very common thing, is just, you know, teaching the dog like all my different injurious behaviors. My mild ones, it's very interesting because it is a spectrum. My mild ones are like, you know, I'll hit the heels of my palms together. I think maybe that's just the lowest, and I'll hit my collarbone here, or hit, and then a step up from that is like I hit my chest like this with my fist, and then, you know, I'll start biting, bite my finger, and then, you know, it goes to the head hitting. So there's this like continuum of like mounting anxiety, and so getting the dog to recognize my first, you know, if I start any kind of stimming that gets more pressure oriented, to alert me to that, so that I know that I don't have to wait until I'm hitting my head to realize, oh dear, let me do something about this. So that's a very common thing. Lots of hitting. A lot of my cues are, you know, recognizing that sort of increase of violence in the stimming. Another one that's very common for psychiatric service dogs, panic attacks, PTSD, is a change in breathing rate, which is something that I find very fascinating, because I don't always, that's very, very subtle, and I can't pick up on that unless I'm like full-blown hyperventilating. So, you know, a dog can pick up on just a subtle change in your breathing to know that you're getting upset, which is just so valuable for me, because like I said, you know, there's a certain level of noticeability that an action has to reach for me to notice that I'm not okay. You know, so the biggest thing is early, this is a weird phrase to use, early intervention, of like noticing your symptoms, letting the dog notice your, I can't talk when there's loud noise. Wait, I just need to stop. Vlog. This happened last time I vlogged outside too. Hi. Don't get me dirty. Oh, you're getting me dirty. Stop it. There's a puppy. Not my puppy. Stop it. Oh, that's my pen. Don't eat it. No, no. No, stop. Hey, drop it. Thank you. Oh, he picked it up and I got it. Thank you. Although I know that's not what you meant to do. Sweet little dude. Yes. Totally forgot what I was saying. Yes. Whatever. Move on. Oh. Yeah, you want to catch the action early enough that you can actually do something about it. Yeah. Let's see. Another really subtle thing that I think as, you know, from the inside looking out, trying to keep track of my stuff, is hands and fists. You know, that is, I don't know if I said this, I do have PTSD too. Watch some of my videos and you'll know why. I've had some traumatic hospital experiences and just, you know, an all-around turbulent life. But why from Lily's life such chaos? Puppy needed to be let inside. Yeah, so one of the common kind of symptoms or reactions for PTSD is increased like anger, aggression, And I do have that sometimes. Not outwardly, not towards myself, not towards people, and I don't ever get violent, but there is that increase of just frustration. And another thing too, sensory overload. One of the symptoms of that is sudden increase of like unexplained anger and irritability. That's my biggest telltale sign of sensory overload, is irritability. So a dog can be trained to pick up on those angry, aggressive responses and signals and know that, like, okay, you're starting to get overwhelmed. It's, and protecting the person and protecting, people around the person, so that doesn't escalate. And then my body position too is very telling of where I'm at. If you have been keeping up with my channel, I'm in the middle of a series about like autistic traits, and I talk a lot about how I'm always touching myself. I've always got my body in these positions, raptor hands, and one of the things I do, is when my hands are here, that's sort of a self-comforting thing. And so it is a little bit indicative of being, maybe uncomfortable, trying to feel safe, trying to have that pressure pulled in and small. It's a safety thing. So even little things like that, of when I go like this, dog recognizing that maybe I just need some comfort, maybe I just need, some positive sensory input to distract me from whatever it is. And let's see. Along with the stuttering too, another thing is, kind of further along the progression is a change in speech fluency. The dog can recognize if I am talking and I stop for a long time because I can't make a word happen in my mouth, from my brain to my mouth, a change in sentence fluency, something even that subtle, he can pick up on and notice that. And that too, like, if I start stuttering and I'm struggling, my frustration and stress is going to get slowly worse and worse because I can't express myself the way I want to, and it's just sort of like a snowball effect. The worse it gets, the more stressed I get, which makes it worse. And so having a dog to intervene, to have that sort of calm down comfort, recollect myself, try to, so it doesn't just escalate beyond my control. I think I've covered most of the stuff for that small cues. Now onto my catatonia. It is, if you're new to my channel, it is similar to like an autistic shutdown, or maybe even like a little bit of a dissociative episode. But the kind of distinct difference with autistic catatonia is the issue isn't, the issue is with initiating movement. If I'm in a catatonic episode and I'm trying to, I want to reach and pick my phone up, and I'm trying, and there's this delay from my brain to my body. If someone prompts me and says, pick up your phone, move your arm this way, like, if there's a prompt, I can do it. It breaks that delay, because catatonia is the issue with initiating movement. So one of the biggest things I need with a service dog, and one of the reasons my independence is super stunted right now, is I am very, very afraid of going out in public by myself and having an episode of catatonia or panic attack or whatever, like a situation where I can't help myself, I can't move, like I can't get myself out of the stressful environment, I can't even verbalize to explain to someone what's happening or ask for help. So it's a very scary, like, it's a very scary, oh my goodness, situation, as you can see, for me, because I've had a lot of, oh gosh, bear with me guys. I'm not going to pause. I'm going to go through this so you guys can see, like, the reality of my PTSD. I've had a lot of traumatic experiences where I had meltdowns and catatonia, and just the absolute terrifying feeling of being trapped and not being able to speak for myself or explain what's happening, you know, and end up being strapped to hospital beds and given hardcore sedatives, and it's terrifying for me. It stunts my independence because I can't go out because I'm so afraid of that happening. I've had such traumatic experiences being trapped like that. Oh gosh. So, the biggest thing for me, because it's probably very obvious to you that that is something that is very powerful, it's affecting my life in a very huge way, is to, you know, if I have a service dog who's trained to find an exit, or what, you know, trained to go, to lead me, you know, I will have a hands-free leash, you know, around my waist so that the dog can start moving and help initiate that movement of my body, and it can break the catatonia, or at least break it enough that I can move and get out of the situation or get somewhere safe so that I can deal. You know, because the thing with catatonia is, you know, if I start having an issue and my anxiety skyrockets and I start to have panic attacks because of PTSD, like, it's just gonna get, like, exponentially worse. It's just a very, like, from 0 to 100 in a very short time, and I am helpless. So I don't go out very much. I can't. No matter what it is, no matter, like, how many sensory things I have in place to help myself deal with the environment, my threshold is about an hour, no matter what, and then I start shaking, and I start, like, I just have to get out of the place. And so I think, you know, it's largely due to my fear of, you know, the longer I'm here by myself, the more likely, you know, XYZ bad thing will happen. So yeah, with the autistic catatonia, it's largely that, you know, and so it is also similar to dissociation, you know, because there is that sort of need to get grounded, a need to engage my senses and regulate my senses, and that'll help my body come back to stasis, you know. So being in catatonia, if I'm not in a public place, you know, a dog providing that sensory input, whether it's, you know, laying on me deep pressure therapy, or even, like, something that this puppy here of the family I'm living with, I was kind of in a shutdown, or, you know, kind of just in a bad place. I kind of slumped down in the kitchen because I was, like, doing dishes or something, and he was laying there, and he started licking my hand. I had my hand there, and he started licking my hand, and that brought, you know, that ended my shutdown, or whatever it was that was going on instantly, you know, because that provided that external sensory feedback to help regulate my nervous system again. So licking, nudging, you know, even, like, making himself in the position and available for me to have my hands on his fur and to have that outside input, is going to be very invaluable in that situation. And trying to think what else. Yeah, I think I've kind of just covered. I apologize. I feel like I've just gone through this really fast. Those of you who, you know, want to take note of these specific cues. And I was kind of saying about, you know, some of the cues, I was explaining what the task would be already, but some of the tasks don't necessarily have cues. They just maybe have verbal commands. So one of those would be, you know, if I lay down, you know, and I can cue him, I can command him to lay on me for deep pressure therapy. And blocking, that's a common service dog task, whether that's for someone who has mobility issues or possibility of, like, fainting and hurting themselves, falling over. But for me, one of my other big things that makes me not able to be around people to go out in public is because I am very touch averse, and you know, if people get too close to me, I panic, instant hyperventilation, instant full body shaking, because I'm so afraid of being bumped into. And so one of the things that a service dog can do is create that sort of buffer. You know, if I'm standing in line, I can distance myself from the person in front of me to a comfortable amount, and he can block behind me, make sure people aren't getting too close. Another thing I've seen is that, you know, in a sort of stationary situation, like for a short time, a dog can be trained to circle their handler to keep people away. You know, so if I am having just a momentary freak out, or if I get bumped into and I need to, like, take a minute to calm myself down, I'm shaking, I'm hyperventilating, that the dog can circle me to make sure that in that state I'm kind of, you know, like overwhelmed and can't do much just for that short time. I'm like, all my energy is in calming down and I'm not focusing on anything else. That's gonna go much faster if, I know that no one's gonna like interfere and touch me and get my attention or whatever, because I wear headphones all the time, and so someone's initial response is to, would be to touch me if I'm having a problem, like in a public place. So having that sort of blocking, that buffer, trained to keep people away in that situation, and to keep people from just walking by too close or whatever, that is something I'm very excited to have, because it is probably like the fastest way I lose my cool in public. Someone walks just a little too close and I'm not okay. Like, it's bad. If you think about that too, is if you have a service dog for any kind of psychiatric, PTSD, whatever, and you have trained him for, kind of those blocking tasks for keeping people from touching you, or whatever the case may be, if you have experience with that, like, do comment and share, like, specifically how, what cues him, or what command, or like how he executes that task, because I'd like to learn more about that. It's something that's a little bit still confusing to me, of how, how exactly to properly get him to execute that task so that it is effective, but safe for everyone involved. Yes, and so another thing that service dogs can do, people with mobility issues, mobility assistance, if they're dizzy after whatever passing out, or they just need that extra support, or they need assistance, a dog is taught specifically to brace in a specific way so that the person can, help stand up. So, for me, if I'm in a public place, if I start shaking bad, if I start getting overwhelmed, I become very unsteady. My body is shaking so bad, I can't take 2 steps without nearly falling down, because my whole body, it's like an earthquake, and I just can't. I lose my balance, I lose, like, everything, and so in some situations are like, I know that I'm shaking pretty bad, but there's not a whole lot I can do about it except calm down, distract myself, move on, especially if it's like I start shaking bad, full body shaking, and I just need to get out of a situation. A lot of reasons I can't do that, because I can't. Either I'm frozen, I can't move, or I'm just shaking so bad that I can't move without losing my balance. So having that extra help to have that support so that I can move confidently, and not be in danger of falling or anything. Service dogs are also good. They are also used, obviously for guide dogs, for people, for the vision impaired, and hearing impaired, hearing dogs. So for both of those things, kind of back with the whole people making me have panic attacks, it's kind of an out of sight, out of mind thing. If I keep my eyes like on the floor and I can't really see the people around me, then I'm like, okay, unless someone actually touches me. I wear my hood up a lot, and that is a sensory thing for me. It's about cutting off a little bit of my peripheral vision, if that makes sense, because my peripheral vision, I can see people, I can see how close they are, I can see how many they are, but if that's kind of cut off a bit, I do better. And so having that visual assistance of like where I can, if I need to, glue my eyes to the floor in front of my feet so that I can stay calm to get out of a situation and not see the people, because that's something that comes up a lot, is I'm shaking, but I can get out, I need to leave, I'm starting to get overwhelmed by the people, but it just escalates so fast because I'm trying to get out, and I'm trying to, like, my circumference of space I need gets bigger and bigger, like, the more space I need to pass by someone gets more, the more overwhelmed I am. So it's just this escalating situation, and so being able to have and trust that the dog can guide me to a certain extent so that I can kind of avoid looking at the people while I'm already having a problem. Hearing-wise, because I do have auditory processing disorder, so I have no threshold for sound, sensory-wise, none. At all. Like, the more I realize how bad it is, still baffles me. But it's bad, and so I wear music all the time, like super noise canceling or earplugs or whatever, like, so I can hear nothing. And that stresses me out in public places. Like, it's a catch-22, because that's the place where I need the most assistance, the most block out the noise, the most comforting of music thing. But I don't like to not be able to hear things in public places because I'm also afraid of people tapping me if I can't hear them or bumping into me. So I want to hear my environment so I can hear where people are and feel comfortable. And so it's just this weird juxtaposition of I need to have music to feel okay, but it stresses me out to not be able to hear my environment and know where people are around me. So having a dog trained for some hearing tasks of alerting me, because he's going to be by my side all the time, with my touch aversion, if I am already touching something or I'm already touching someone, then they can touch me and it's fine, because what it is that it just upsets the regulation of my system if I'm being touched without expecting it. So if the dog's on me always, I can always feel him walking, I can always have my hand down on his fur, he can do his task, his alert, to nudge me or whatever if someone's trying to get my attention, so that I don't have to worry about hearing in my environment and being afraid someone will try to get my attention by touch or whatever, so that I can leave my music in and then stay regulated and stay comfortable in these places. And yeah, let's see, comfort. Yeah, I think that's all of them. Again, I apologize this wasn't super organized. If you need any clarification or something I didn't explain well, feel free to comment, ask for clarification. For that, I had this other thought that I was going to share, but I forgot it. Right, so all that to say, if you are wanting to get a service dog, take notes like this. I've got, 2-page spread in my trusty notebook here of anytime I notice a behavior that is indicative of something, anxiety, panic, whatever, I note it down, and then I think of what task does the dog need to do to help me with that? What needs to happen here? And that's going to be extremely invaluable as you go through the process. It's going to be extremely helpful for the trainers. They already know what they're doing, but to come in knowing already what you need is going to be very vital to the whole process. The more you plan ahead and think about it ahead of time, the more you can initially have ready for the dog to learn. And service dogs should always train, and you may pick up some other cue or notice some other thing and train them along the way. You never stop training. But just being aware of what you need ahead of time is going to help. And so another thing with that is some people, they don't know if a service dog would benefit them or not. Making that list of cues and tasks is going to be a very great representation and confirmation for you whether or not it's worth it. For me, obviously, you kind of saw briefly, there's so many things, and I kind of said at the beginning, it's a huge confirmation that there's no doubt in my mind that I need a service dog, because I'm always very wary and kind of, it's some of this internalized ableism where I'm afraid of asking for this accommodation or pursuing a service dog because I don't want to have this persona or whatever of I am so disabled, I need all the special help, so I just, it's something that I just needed to know in my heart that was very legitimate, that I legitimately needed before I pursued it. And obviously, we're 34 minutes now just explaining my tasks and my cues, and I felt like I'm going fast. So yes, I will be updating you guys a lot on my service dog situation. I'm about to start fundraising and I'm so excited. But yes, so that's what I've got. These are the cues and the tasks, hopefully to help you guys kind of think ahead too of what kind of tasks an autism service dog, a PTSD service dog, sensory assistant service dog will be helpful for, kind of a jumping off point. If you have questions, let me know. Subscribe. Yeah. Stay classy, sim freely, and I will catch you next time.